All right, Cathy. I'm sort of preparing myself mentally for this is, by the way, this would be my absolute first reading I've ever
Okay.
gotten ever. I've never done this before.
Okay.
I'm very nervous about it.
No, don't be nervous. I just want to make sure that my phone is volume off. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. So as you know, my name is Kathy. We're going to do a combination reading just to demonstrate psychic and mediumship. I know this is your first reading, like you said. I'm just going to explain to you the difference between psychic and mediumship. Psychic is past, present, and future, which means it's your life, past, present, and future. And then when I do mediumship, it's going to be connecting with those that are in the afterlife. I have two women in spirit. One of them comes through in a very big motherly way. She connects with you, but I also feel like she connects with your wife's family. She's very much like this, like she wants to touch her hair or fix her hair or fix her face. And she comes through in a very motherly way. Okay. So this would either be identified as someone who's like a mom to one of you or is a mom to one of you, but she's very much about fixing her hair or doing this kind of fixing the hair.
I like how my wife is taking over my reading. Like, she's not even here and it's she's dominating the whole scene already.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so funny. I know when we can't control what comes through, just like I said, once you open that door, if someone is connected to you, they can come over. It's very interesting too, because I have a man on the other side who feels very connected to you. He feels older than you. He feels family.
This is where it gets weird.
He's got a little bit of restless energy to him. I feel like if he's going, he's going. If he's stopped, then he's like struggles with being stopped. He gives off this kind of protector, fatherly feeling with it. He also talks about, I don't know what this is. Someone when he passed was out of the country, or someone when he passed was traveling around the world or at a distance, because he talks about someone not being around or someone was on a significant travel when he passed. He also brings up the month of October as being very important. When they bring up a month, it's either someone's birthday, anniversary, or a passing. He's showing me the month of October. Do you understand him?
There's a lot of things in there that you hit on I have an older brother who passed.
Okay.
He's 10 years older than me. I was out of the country when he passed. My birthday's in October.
Okay.
Those were definite specifics. Holy fuck. Welcome to Splintered Spirits, a podcast hosted by me, Gary, and my nephew Johnny, where I follow Johnny as he tries to prove his theory that ghosts are the fractured memories of the living. As we narrow down who or what Johnny is actually talking to, I met with a medium, Cathy Nadal, spelled N-A-D-A-L. Cathy is a certified medium with the Forever Family Foundation, a registered nurse, and a retired Army colonel. You can find her on Instagram at CatWitchNYC, and her books are sold on Amazon. She had her first psychic encounter at the age of 9 and has been giving readings and investigating paranormal activity for over 20 years. What you just heard was a snippet of a reading she gave me. A great deal of it was broad, and I'm still processing it, but when it got specific, it was disturbingly so. I have a very limited social media presence, and what I do have is private. I can't for the life of me, bad choice of words maybe, figure out how she could have known these things, some dealing with my kids, which I'm not comfortable sharing. I don't fully understand what Cathy's got, but if it can help Johnny and I, we're going to find out. Cathy, thank you so much for talking to me. Please explain to me and anyone who may be listening what exactly a medium is.
So thank you for having me on the show. A medium is someone like me that's able to communicate with those that are in the afterlife. So the afterlife are those that are passed on, family, friends, friends of friends. As a medium, when I sit down for a reading with someone, I work in my way of working, which is the only way I know since I was a little girl. I'm clairvoyant, which means I can see spirit. I'm clairaudient, which means I can hear spirit.
I'm clear shitless because this idea of spirits freaks me out.
Spirit, hear spirit, and see and hear spirit, and I deliver the information. As I deliver the information, I say, does this make sense? And that's where we get the evidence of spirit. So it's interesting because I'm certified through the Forever Family Foundation.
What kind of test did they put you through?
So it's interesting. I actually sat for the testing in 2013, but just prior to that, my father, who was a very strict Roman Catholic, said, "I want you to be tested because I don't want you to say you can do this if you really can't do it." He said, "I don't want anyone to ever call you a charlatan." And my dad actually worked for the Reader's Digest magazine for many years, and they had done a magazine, the whole spread on Houdini. And Houdini's life was going around and trying to, test these people to see if they were charlatans, and a majority of them were. And he was very frustrated with people calling themselves mediums because he didn't believe in it. And he said, there should be some way of getting the real information. So a good friend of mine, Suzanne Northrup, who's a very well-known medium, she told me, go over to Arthur Findlay in England, in Stansted, England. And I did.
Arthur Findlay in Essex has been around for like 100 years. They specialize in this kind of paranormal fringe science.
Only 9 people on the list. They put our names on the wall. And my roommate said, let's go down and look at the list. And she said, I'm on the same list. I said, oh my God, we must be in Beyond Basic. She said, no, we're in the top class. And I came back to my dad. I said, Dad, England said I can do it. And he said, I'm not satisfied. What do the Americans think of you? So, so I went back to Suzanne Northrup and I said, my dad's not impressed with Arthur Findlay. And she said, well, then you need to take the test through Forever Family Foundation. But she was a very, very honest. She said, listen, they're very tough. She said, so many people have tried out. Very few people get in. She said, you just have to work the way you work. It's your own gift and you know how you do it.
The Forever Family Foundation is a nonprofit organization that does a lot of work helping people deal with grief and loss. They take mediumship very seriously. They don't charge for their services so the bereaved aren't swindled by frauds. Therefore, their certification process is quite intense. From their website, they state each medium is exposed to a variety of sitters and a scoring system is used to determine the accuracy of the information presented. The sitter selection is controlled to ensure that none of the mediums has any prior access to the sitter or any information about them. Whether you're a believer or not, the numbers don't lie, and the people they select hit high matches and marks.
I had to do a phone reading for someone, and the person just said hello and goodbye. They didn't say yes, no, nothing. I just talked to them. They don't nod their head. They don't give you any gestures or anything. And then that happened for 4 or 5 people. And at the end, this different person got on and said, okay, well, if you pass the test, you'll get a letter in 2 weeks. So I called my dad and I said, well, I did it. That's it. We'll see if I get a letter in the mail. If I don't get a letter, then I didn't pass and we'll forget about it. And 2 weeks later, I got the letter. And I couldn't get to my phone fast enough to call my dad. And I said, Dad, American says I can do it. The America says I can do it, So my dad said, okay, then I'm okay with you doing that. So I wrote my first book and I started working with the public, which for me was a big risk because I was in the Army Reserve and I was very worried because I always had a high rank. And I said, Dad, if I start doing this, I'm going to have to tell my commanding officer. And he said, well, you better tell them the truth now. It's better to let them know now, So I would go and do a radio show, or I would go and they wrote an article about me in the paper. And I would have to go say to my commanding officer, listen, I may or may not have been on a radio show, or I may or may not need to do a radio show. And all of these commanding officers, and the higher I went in rank, I ended up retiring as a full bird colonel. My commanding officer was a general. And every one of them would kind of like give me a half a smile. And then they would shrug their shoulders and say, okay, as long as I wasn't giving out any dark secrets of the military or any special operations we were doing, they were fine with it, So I was very happy that I didn't have any problems, with them stopping me.
When was the first time you had a paranormal experience?
So I was 9 years old.
Wow.
My dad and I used to go fishing, but I'm going to teach you how to go crabbing. He said, we're going to have a crab net. We're going to put the bait in. The net's going to go to the bottom. The walls open up. The crab goes in, takes the bait, and we'll pull it up. It was on a rope. And I said, okay, I got it. And there was a bunch of little boys on the dock that day. So my dad walked over and he was kind of coaching them. And the minute he walked away, I heard so clearly, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. And I said, oh, I better pick it up. So I started pulling on this rope. And he turned around and he started marching back to me really quickly. And he was like 6'2", and I looked and I said, oh my gosh. So I launched it out of the water. And it was the biggest blue crab that day on the dock. And all these little boys came running over. And they were like, oh, wow, look at that, And my dad looked at me like, I defied him, but, I got the big blue crab. But I said, I'm going to listen to that. And shortly after that, my dreams started to come true. I started to see very vivid dreams, all in color, and they started to be very predictive of the future. So I thought, geez, I'm best friends with my dad. I'll just start telling him about the lady across the street. And then I think the lady across the street's going to die because she was standing out of her wheelchair and the cat that is already in heaven, the cat came running up. So, this is what's going to happen. And my father said, no, 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 we don't do this. We're Roman Catholics, shut that down quickly. And a matter of hours of me telling him about the lady across the street in the wheelchair, the daughter came over and said that she had died the night before. And that's when he really said, you better knock it off. We're not.
Well, it sounds like your dad was your biggest supporter in all this.
Yeah.
I don't know what my parents would say if I told them I was seeing, dead people. I think they'd be like, come on,
Yeah.
we got to get him some help.
Yeah. Well, my dad was not a believer, but I realized the older I got, and after those people tested me, that he actually was becoming older himself. And I think what happens to people is when they're faced with medical problems, like my dad had gone through cancer treatment, my dad had a bad heart. I think you start looking at your own mortality. And I think my dad really wanted to know, where are we all going to go one day and what's it going to be like? So I think it was better and easier for him to become more open to me after I was tested, because it wasn't me saying I can do it. It was other people saying I could do it, and it was more accepting for him. But, the Roman Catholic Church still doesn't acknowledge what I do. So
how many cases have you worked on in your career as a medium?
I would probably have to say, I haven't counted them all, but it's probably a few thousand, maybe.
Oh, wow.
I've been working about 20 years now.
And out of those few thousand, would you say they are all legit? Would you ever get called and think, oh, no, this guy's a wacko or just completely full of shit?
Well, I have to say that all of my work is usually different. So in the past, I would have to say there was about 8 years that I worked up in Salem, Massachusetts. So I belong to a church in Salem, Massachusetts. My religion now is being Wiccan. I'm a witch.
I absolutely love that we live in a society where someone can casually say in complete comfort that they're a witch.
And for about 8 years, I worked with a warlock by the name of Christian Day. And during Halloween, we would get a license to do readings for 31 days. And that was really tricky. Some of these people are out 12 hours of the day walking around Salem, having a cocktail and dressed up in costumes where their eye is coming out and, all sorts of gory outfits and stuff that are going on. So we had a couple of tough situations in Salem because, people are drinking and whatever,
Right.
So those scenarios, every time we go in a public environment, even on my website, I advertise that this is for entertainment purposes only, because believe it or not, in the state of New York, it's still a real law that doing psychic readings or fortune telling is against the law.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so it's still a New York State law. It's a very old law that's still on the books.
New York State Penal Law 165.35, fortune telling is a Class B misdemeanor, and one can serve up to 90 days in jail and pay up to $500 in fines.
But people, that's one of the bigger things. When I'm in an environment that I can control, like a personal reading or a house party, I can't read for people that are, partying to the max
Sure.
because, Halloween was a different scenario. The other thing you were asking was paranormal investigations where I've gone into locations. Is that what you were asking before?
Can you talk about a specific case that really moved you and really was like, this is a different level?
For mediumship or paranormal?
Either.
Yeah, I have to mention the Spirit of Thomas Paine. That was really an amazing experience. I worked with Dan Sturgis from the Travel Channel. He's on a Paranormal Caught on Camera. And also Chance Kelly, who's the actor from American Sniper. And I was at the location called Thomas Paine, which is in New Rochelle, New York. And it was during that investigation that we actually had an audible sound outside, and it was caught on the sound system. It sounded like a steel drum. It sounded like somebody that was hitting like a steel drum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually been captured. You can watch this whole thing on YouTube. The interesting thing about this is that when we got to the second floor, the floor in the facility had like a very different kind of a slant to it. And I kept saying like, oh, I feel a little woozy. I feel like I'm going to fall. And we stepped into one of the rooms. And in one of the rooms, I actually turned and said, oh, I have a woman here. Can I speak with the cameraman? And I always deliver a message if I have permission. And I just started to deliver information about his mother. And I said, oh, I see her and she's wearing this 1950s sweater. And he was like really kind of in shock. He said, I have to take this all in. And then he did the whole video and you can see it on there. But he drops in his editing pictures of his mother with that 1950s sweater. And to me, it was so incredible because that wasn't the reason why I was there. The reason why I was there was to do this Thomas Paine investigation and talk about, the history and going back, into time.
Sure.
His mother's spirit was so strong that she was coming through to make sure her son knew that she was fine. And, after that production was done, I was really surprised the strength and the power of the afterlife. She wanted to say hi to her son and nobody was going to stop her, And
that's amazing. You went in there to do this historical thing and it winds up a reading on the cameraman.
Yes.
Because his mother came through. That's pretty wild. That is pretty wild.
And it was really very touching to me because of how she came through and how it meant so much to him. Like he was kind of in shock, Every time I tell someone to watch that video, they always text me and say, oh my God, like it's so incredible,
Yeah.
The other thing I have to say is when I do these paranormal investigations, I have no knowledge of their equipment. So when I go in and the paranormal team says, I have a spirit box or I don't have any knowledge of their equipment. I just go in to do what I do.
That's all. That's even better. I don't want you to know what their equipment is. Or his equipment. So this is what this video had like 7.5 million views. He posts these after he does a live stream. If he captures something, he'll go and volunteer at local cemeteries, usually the oldest part of the cemetery, and clean the gravestones. And then he'll have conversations. So here's something that popped up when he was doing it. Here we go.
Come closer.
I'm here.
No one visits me.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. I'll come visit more often. If you'll be okay with that. I'll definitely come and visit.
Go away.
Oh, I just heard go
My
away.
name is John, too.
Oh, so is mine. How about that, John? John, is there another spirit bothering you here? Because you seem to be pretty friendly with me, but you told something to go away. My name is John, too. Oh, wait.
That's sort of the gist of a lot of the things he does. When you see something like that, what does your gut tell you?
Well, the first thing, not even seeing it, but hearing it, my theory from what I've seen of your nephew is he may have spirits that are following him. So it's not just what's on the app, but spirits that are around your nephew may be communicating with the app.
If you lock in the definitions of psychical activity, right, to apparitions, hauntings, poltergeists, into those three boxes, hauntings sort of fit into what his theory is, right? These imprints, like these things that have been, somehow energy has been trapped in this space, in some sort of quantum space where he is. But is he like AI somehow? Is he giving a voice to a haunting? Can he make a haunting interact with him? It's almost like he's bringing the haunting to life in a weird way for whatever. Is he some sort of tech medium or some gift?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm making this shit up because I don't know this world at all.
Is it possible that he has another person that is unnamed that's maybe his spirit guide? Because if we have someone that might be an imprint, like the haunting definition, where this person wants to keep making his presence known, so maybe the spirit guide is the one that's being able to bring through the information to the app.
Well, that's a great theory.
Because we all have like spirit guides. Like some people say, what's a spirit guide? And I always say to people, well, do you feel like you have a guardian angel? And they say, oh yeah, I definitely know I had a guardian angel. Guardian angel and spirit guide are sometimes considered like synonymous, like it's the same thing. So if your nephew has a spirit guide, maybe the spirit guide is the one that's being able to translate those messages for this haunting spirit.
Cathy, what would be the first thing you would do if you were to sit with Johnny in this basement?
Well, I think the best thing is if I were to meet him, I would say no devices. Let me just sit with you and see what I get. No devices. And then bring through information about his life, maybe a psychic information about his life, maybe mediumship, validating people in his life that he knew that are past. That might be helpful, but no devices. This way he can validate. Even being a skeptic, someone could say, yes, I did have that person pass away. Just factual stuff. And then meeting with him and turning on the devices, if they're phones or apps or whatever, and then asking, have him talk to it and say, what do you want to say to Cathy? Because those spirits don't know me. And if, I never, my intention is always good when I do paranormal investigations. I don't poke the bear or anything, but it would be interesting to see their take on me. Do they see me as a friendly force, or do they see me as somebody that shouldn't be around Johnny? Like maybe I'm a threat to Johnny.
Well, I'd certainly like to see you in the space without any devices just to see if you're getting a vibe.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think spirits are standalone ghosts floating around, like they are? I'm using the word floating around. I just don't know what else to say, but I'm just, if they're floating around ghosts, or is it more likely that it's this energy that lands in places that is formerly important to them somehow? Or is it a combination of both? What have you discovered and what do you feel it is?
My experience as a medium and doing paranormal investigations is I have seen both.
Okay.
So I've seen the ghost that's there and then it's not. Like I actually saw that in a home where I literally saw someone who looked like, wrapped in like orange robes and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. And like nobody else saw it. It was like right there, solid it didn't, it was like right there and then it wasn't, and that to me is more like ghost. The other stuff where I did a paranormal investigation at the Chance, which was a rock and roll club in Poughkeepsie, I literally went down to that basement. I told them all about a fire that had gone on. I told them about a wall behind a wall. All of this stuff was validated. That to me is more of the imprint stuff. It's me coming in many years later and talking about something that I can see as if it was still happening. Nobody else can see it, obviously,
Right.
but I can go right to the wall where something happened. That to me is the imprint stuff. So I think it's a combination.
I would love to have you, if you're open to it, go to one of these locations so we can narrow down, and use a process of elimination to figure out what the hell is going on with him and this.
Yeah, I agree. I can't speak to the apps because I have no knowledge of any of that stuff, but I would be very interested in doing it plain with no
Yeah.
and then with, because I think the comparison of that would be very telling.
So do I. Cathy, thank you so much. I mean, this is really enlightening for me. This whole world to me is like, if you had asked me 3 months ago before I started getting into it, then I'd be like, you guys are all nuts. And this is crazy. And then the more I'm with him and how it's going, it's like, oh my, what is going on? And who's to say what's going on? And why is it happening?
Yeah, I can't wait to see what goes on. I'm like excited about it because I think it's interesting. I think the whole concept is interesting. I think that's probably why he has a lot of followers, because a lot of people are hungry for knowledge. A lot of times we may feel we believe in something and then we're not sure if we really do or not. And I think that's what's going on with your nephew right now. I think he wants to believe, but he's not sure what's going on.
He believes it's something, but he just doesn't know. He's like, look, these are spirits. They're talking to me. This is what they got to be. It's great. Anyway, you're absolutely right. Cathy, thank you. Thank you. Cathy proved to me, for whatever that's worth, to not only be experienced, but credible. If there are spirits surrounding Johnny, I am convinced she'll be able to pick up on them. Let me be clear, she's not getting paid for any of this. We don't have any money. And this recording was done before we even launched, so there's no mass audience to impress. Cathy has no reason to lie. She's here because she believes in the work and has a natural curiosity about the afterlife, like we all do. In our next episodes, Cathy gives Johnny a reading and we introduce her to nasty old Edward. You won't want to miss those. Thanks for listening to Splintered Spirits, and we hope you'll be back for more conversations.